RFK, he actually made it. He's in. He's confirmed. Tell me about your thoughts.
Woo!
Yes, that's good.
I was
Excited.
I was watching. I just felt like it dragged for so long because he had to go through the finance committee, then the health committee, and then once they voted, those two committees voted, then we had to wait almost, was it like a week or 2 weeks? We had to wait almost like 2 weeks for them to go into the voting of the Senate, and then he was confirmed. So this was almost like a 3-week process.
We were worried for a minute.
I freaked out for a second.
There was like doctor signing things and yeah.
Yeah, that was scary, but I'm glad they confirmed. I mean, the hearings were brutal. I mean, I was watching the actual hearing, especially with the finance committee, where they were drilling him with a lot of questions about Medicaid and Medicare. And I was watching that video in the office in between patients. At some point, I had to turn it off because at that point, I was almost giving like pissed off adjustments, you know? I was like, my goodness. And I remember I was telling you, I was like, I don't know how he does it. You told me, I don't know how his wife is able to stand there and watch all these guys ask him all these questions. So it was very stressful. But I did like the when he called Bernie Sanders out regarding, you're the first one that takes money from Big Pharma, and Bernie freaked out.
Yeah, he freaked out.
They kept going back and forth too. It was funny.
It was
Yeah.
good.
What were you gonna say, Hennessy?
The whole time I remember texting you. That was the first time, and I was just saying to Andres, I can just feel for his wife because everything how they were treating him, I was in shock. I was like, I don't know if I could even handle that being in the same room. These people were very disrespectful. But hey, I'm glad that he won.
They wouldn't let him. They would ask a question, and they would take all the time so he couldn't answer the question. And the whole conversation was about Medicare, Medicaid, which is fine, you know. But I mean, it's such a complex system. How do they expect him to know every intricacy about Medicaid? I mean, we talked about it.
They don't. They're just building points to try to point fingers, which is sad because ultimately it doesn't propel us in a positive direction, no matter which way you think about it, you know?
Yeah.
So.
One of the things that I liked about in one of the hearings, they talk about funding, right? And how most of our research with an NIH, CDC, it's all based upon, we got to research, what's it called? Infectious disease. That's pretty much what the budget is going to. He's like, but let's be honest. Is that the real problem that we have in America? Which is not. It's chronic illness. So that's the one thing that I felt all these senators kept bringing back: the vaccine issue, the Medicaid issue.
Yeah.
They kept bringing back the funding issue. And and then we're on the other side just listening to the whole argument going back and forth. It's like, hey, the big issue is chronic illness. That's what's literally killing Americans right now.
But it's almost like they want to keep that quiet. They don't want to talk about that.
I think there's a lot of money. I mean, you create the disease, then you create the pill to mask the disease that you just created, and it just becomes a cash cow.
So for people who didn't get a chance to watch this, you said you watched the hearings and stuff. I know a lot of people probably did not, right? And so you might be watching this and they haven't watched that. What would you say is like one of the big issues? You just talked about one of them, but what kind of stuck out to each of you individually about the hearings and what's going on, and what RFK is bringing forth to us that's going to make a real difference in their life, the person who's listening to this life?
You guys can go first.
I'll start. One of the things that stuck with me then that I asked you, they kept bringing the fact of how he's against vaccines. And multiple times he was very clear that he's not against vaccines. What he's saying is we need to make sure that the process that every vaccine,
Every medication,
every vaccine that has ever been made goes through this process of research and making sure that not only we know the short-term consequences, but also the long-term. He's just saying, hey,
do due diligence. Yeah.
Exactly. And then they just kept bringing that up, and these people are not listening. That was very frustrating.
I saw a headline that said that RFK said that none of the 72 vaccines that are mandated for children have actually been properly tested.
Well, no, I think a lot of these research papers, which is another part of this conversation, is who did the research? Was it the actual company that created the pill or created the vaccine, or was it done by a third party that is not biased? That's the other question. And I haven't looked at all the research papers, but I know there's a lot of collusion between pharmaceutical companies and these
The medical research.
and yeah, exactly, because NIH and CDC, they receive grants from the pharmaceutical companies. They receive money from it. So the other question is, who are the directors of the NIH and the CDC and the FDA, which are usually, they have a background in pharmaceuticals. Even when before they did the voting for in Congress for RFK, Chuck Schumer, which is a Democrat, he stood up and he talked about how unqualified RFK was. And he said, there's so many people out there that have a pharmaceutical background. And I was like, why would we want somebody from the pharmaceutical industry to lead HHS?
No, I agree. I agree. One of the big problems for me is that even those vaccines that go through a lot of clinical trials and such before their approval have gaps in their long-term testing and also testing that reflects real-world conditions.
Sure.
And it makes a big difference, and we don't see that until it's too late.
What I didn't get a chance to look at, the research or the stats on it. But right now, our kids are taking 72 doses before a certain age. How many other countries that are developed, right? Let's say England, Canada, etc., are also taking 72 doses. I don't know the stats on that, but we should look into it. I don't think there's any other country that takes that many doses of vaccine when you're that young.
Just we're all 40-ish range, 30 to 45-ish range, right?
Wow, that gap.
How old are you, Dr. Winston?
I didn't ask that question.
None of your business.
But I was going to say, when we were kids, if you did take vaccines, there were not nearly as many as now.
Yeah.
There's the schedule is so demanding now.
My question is, and obviously I'm vaccinated. My parents didn't know any better, obviously. But what happened from the 1990s forward? Did we suddenly get attacked by that many diseases that now we had a major increase in doses?
No, but I mean, there's money to be made in that process as well. And when these larger corporations are financially entangled with these health organizations, all of a sudden it's not surprising that these mandates are for more use of these vaccines because they benefit from that.
And a lot of these people from Congress, Congresswomen and congressmen, they probably make a lot of money from this. And I felt like the vaccine conversation was very delicate. There was very few people from Congress that actually approached the conversation from a science perspective of let's have a healthy debate. But almost everything was like, if you cut the funding, if you do this, they're safe, they're effective, we're not going to research it anymore. It almost felt like they didn't want to uncover something. There was probably, the only one I can think about is Rand Paul. He was one of the few that actually approached the conversation from a honest, let's have a debate, let's figure this out. I mean, our autism rates are up. A lot of people are sick.
Well, and the interesting thing is Trump and RFK have been talking about eliminating mandates for vaccines for schools and for things.
He already wrote an executive order.
And I think that's where it's most important because, one, it's about choice. All of us as individuals have the choice to vaccinate ourselves or your choice to vaccinate your children. So taking that choice, I think, is the bigger problem, not necessarily the vaccine themselves, but then still not knowing what the long-term effects of the vaccines are and just kind of accepting, oh, they've been great. Vaccines are life-changing. They're saving the world. But just like, comments that I make with other medications like aspirin that we might be talking about later, where it's absolutely great and you need to do it, and then you find out down the road that there's actually negatives. And so he's basically saying we need to pay attention to these down the road negatives that could pop up that we just aren't aware of yet.
Yeah. And isn't it crazy that we advocate and many doctors advocate for individualized medical or health care, yet when it comes to certain things, it's all cookie cutter?
Yeah.
For example, 72, do you think every single child in North America has to take 72 doses? No. Every single one. Do you think every human being, every adult over 60 has to take an aspirin?
Right.
Right. It can't be cookie cutter, because the moment we go into a cookie cutter healthcare system, everybody gets sick, or not everybody benefits.
No, absolutely.
Genesis, what were you going to say?
Yeah. Speaking of that, everyone definitely is different. But over the weekend, there was a post about RFK. They were just bashing him. And I posted something. That's not the important part. But someone replied to me.
Everyone go look at it.
Someone said, you are ignoring that this man believes black people don't deserve the same medical treatment as white people. Says a ton about you, Genesis. Then I was thinking, there's stuff like, there's diseases out there like sickle cell. Mm-hmm. You heard of sickle cell?
Yeah, it's more prone in the African American population.
The only reason why I know that is because I play volleyball in college. We have the first male basketball athlete that made it to the NBA with sickle cell. Wonderful guy. And I mean, it's inspiring to know his story, but even knowing that, I know him, but people don't know that, and it's kind of crazy that people take this personal and they want to make it about
race
and stuff. We're talking about health, and it's important that people know.
It is.
For them to know that every child is different. They're going to react differently.
And based on your background.
It's different.
Yeah.
And there's genetic predisposition depending on your race. I mean, it happens even to Latinos. You know, we have a predisposition to certain conditions compared to the white American or the African American, et cetera, right? That's just common sense if you look at biology. So, and the reason they're saying that is because in the hearings, he said in one of the in the questions, he's like, shouldn't we look at a different schedule for different types of people? Which I think it's a fair question, right? If you're sick or you're healthy or you have this genetic background, shouldn't we do a different vaccine schedule based on research, right? Or same thing with medications in general.
Or if you're coming in, like our son was born premature, or you have a toxic overload because of some situation, maybe your parent or your mother had drug issues. Like, I don't know. There's so many different circumstances of how kids come in the world, and we're not.
Exactly. I mean, and Rand Paul called it, when he talks about in the hearing about hepatitis B vaccine. It's like, hey, my wife is healthy. I'm healthy. We're negative for hepatitis. Why should my child that's a few weeks old should get a hepatitis B shot?
Right.
I mean, that's only for people that are infected if they're positive. So going back to the hearing, I mean, it was pretty stressful. The amount of times that they brought up the vaccine conversation and he kept going back and forth. It's all about freedom of choice, right? And again, choices do have consequences from both sides. If you choose to vaccinate your kid, there might be some consequences. If you choose not to, there's also consequences. And as an adult and as a parent, you got to be okay with those consequences.
And that's the big point that I make. That's exactly what I'm saying, is that you need to have the choice, and you also have to deal with the consequence. There's no right choice that has no negative consequence ultimately in the end.
Would you think that overall, that's really what RFK is doing, is he's giving people their freedom back for choices in their healthcare, as well as giving them knowledge to make choices without being swayed? Do you think that overall is what the whole thing's about?
Absolutely.
That's the platform. It's freedom of choice, chronic illness, and let's eliminate corruption. Those are the three top things that he's shooting for. He's attempting to uncover in this next 2 to 4 years, etc.
So someone listening to this who maybe doesn't have a medical background, isn't as involved in this, hasn't been watching it, what would be the final thing you would want to say to them about RFK getting confirmed after hearing all this? What would you want them to know?
Give the guy a chance.
Yeah, sometimes the system needs disruption in order to reassess priorities and look at things from a different angle. and kind of start questioning the norms as they are right now. That's progress.
Yeah, and for people that do not follow the situation or they don't like to get involved in politics, which again, we're approaching this from a healthcare perspective. This is beyond politics and red and blue, etc. But the one thing that I want people to ask themselves is like, what we're doing right now, is it working? Our current healthcare system, is it actually working? It's clearly not working. So we got to do something different, because if we keep doing the same thing we're doing, expecting different results, what is that?
Crazy.
Yeah, or insanity.
Also,
right?
you and I were talking over the weekend. What if the Democrats were in power, right? Instead of Donald Trump, would you have the same belief, or would you think the same way as you're thinking of?
If the
RFK?
same conversations were happening, but there was different people.
Yeah.
So basically be open-minded and try to look at it.
I think it's because I've had some discussions in YouTube and TikTok with the videos that we post. And as we keep going through question after question after question about RFK, it always boils down to he's not on my side of the party, right? Or it's a partisan issue.
Funniest thing, didn't RFK actually originally run for president as a Democrat?
Yeah. I mean, he had his own platform, but he was more on the Democratic side.
Just saying.
Yeah. So it's messed up. So I think I wish people saw this not from a political perspective, but more from a healthcare perspective.
Yeah, I'm constantly trying to get that separation. This is what it is. This is where we're going to be for the next few years. So now, rather than looking at this as a party issue, take every different situation that's happening based on these political changes and assess them based on your life and how they benefit or don't benefit. You can't just say, because this is driven by the Republicans, I don't benefit from this in any way. This is all negative, because now you're kind of putting yourself in that box. And if you are someone, for instance, that is from that, say, lower income, where you don't have always have the medicine and the healthcare that you need, when you put yourself in your box, so now you're not even willing to go out there and see what's available to you, because you already assume it's already against you. Yeah. Now you're putting yourself in the same box and creating a bigger problem.
Man, and if you listen to his statement, which I've heard it so many times, he's very consistent with statement. For the last 20 years, every morning when I wake up, I get on my knees and I pray that God put me in a position where I can end the chronic disease epidemic. I was like, how can you not get after that? And people get stuck on the idea. It's like, he's going to take away our vaccines and everybody's going to die. I was like, no, where is that on the policies? Like, I never heard him say that we're going to take away your vaccines.
Right. Just give you your choice.
Yeah, we're going to give your choice back as a parent,
So talk to me a little bit about the idea. I know that you heard this in one of the hearings and stuff. The fact that, and you touched on it, is research sometimes we don't understand the full effects, positive or negative, of something for sometimes decades or longer. And that has been happening with aspirin in the news recently. Yep. So share with us a little bit about what that is, like explain that, and kind of let's talk a little bit about what that means in relation to what we've been talking about.
And by the way, I didn't know this. I was listening to the hearings, and then Rand Paul talks about autism. And he's like, right now we don't have a lot of research showing what could be causing autism. And he said, is it the vaccines? Is it our food? I really don't know. Should we study it even in more depth? Absolutely, right? And then he brings the concept of if 20 years ago he would have said that aspirin was not good for preventing heart attacks or strokes, everyone would have been on him. They would have been on him, and they would have called him crazy. But he's like, 20 years later, the science is showing that there's no true benefit of taking a baby aspirin every day if you are not at risk. And I looked into, when I heard that, I was like, really? Because for years I've heard that if you're over 50 or over 40, you should take a baby aspirin to prevent stroke and heart attacks.
Well, and really, growing up, we were bombarded with those commercials. It was Bayer aspirin, and it was more like, this is the heart health way to do things. Take one a day. It was just a thing. And it's kind of funny to me because they don't have, if they were responsible for the repercussions of their action, they may not be so quick to push these drugs without putting the proper testing in place. So what I mean by that is once we realized that aspirin wasn't as safe as we originally thought, what happened was they just kind of backed away silently into the shadows. You just stop seeing the commercials, you stop hearing about it, and they hope we forget about it. But what about all the people who are now going to the doctor? They have these brain bleeds, they have GI bleeds, and these new problems. If these people now have to pay for the problems they cause, they wouldn't be so apt to allow it to go through so easily in the first place. But they don't. They just kind of back away quietly and just let us suffer until we make different
See what happens.
It is a great marketing campaign. Take one of these and you'll be good to go, right? Yeah. But I also
for
heard
the rest of your life.
They've got continuity there. But tell me, they're also talking about, in all this discussion, they're talking about, hey, we should probably not allow drug advertising as much on.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, we've talked about it before, but there's only 2 countries in the world that legally allow pharmaceutical companies to advertise directly to consumers, United States and New Zealand. Every other country, it's usually illegal for a pharmaceutical company to directly advertise to the consumer. I think that should be a conversation between the patient and their doctor, not the patient and the TV. And now you...
I'm bringing this up to my doctor.
I think that is wrong.
What about over-the-counter medicine?
I think
like Bayer, to your point.
Which, by the way, just because it's over-the-counter doesn't mean it's safe.
Well.
That's just as bad. And you have to remember, these companies have large divisions within their company who specifically focus on the colors that stimulate us to do what they want. And the verbiage that they need to say. So they're manipulating us. At the core, it's all manipulation to sell their drug. Then they get you to want to then go to your doctor, and it's basically these people going, this is what I want. I'm seeing it out there. I heard on the news or on that commercial that I could benefit in this way, and I want you to give it to me. And when they don't get it, they leave and switch doctors to find one that will. So now these doctors have to worry about losing patients. So what do? They get real lax with their prescription pads. It's a problem.
What do you think?
Insane. I have no much to say.
Yeah, I mean, the aspirin issue, it's, they still recommend, and this was actually a study, or they did some research. I think it's called the U.S. Preventative Task Force. Is that correct?
Probably.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's something like that. U.S. Preventative Task Force. And they're the ones that said, after 20 years of research and data, if you're healthy and you're not at risk for cardiovascular disease after 60, you shouldn't be taking these aspirins. Because if you fall, the risk of you bleeding out, it's way worse. Yeah. Having a brain bleed, way worse. Right. Gastrointestinal bleeding, way worse. Right. So if you're healthy, you're good. Now, if you're not healthy, and you've already had a heart attack, or you're predisposed for heart disease, they said keep doing it. It does prevent after a second episode. But if you're healthy, there's no reason to do it.
Well, and how many years were they like, we didn't know what was going on
since the 90s?
So
for
that's
20 years,
almost 25 years probably.
It's the same issue with what's it called, the red dye.
Right.
30 years later, now it's illegal.
Right. And so same thing with vaccines and pharmaceutical drugs and all these other
things.
Eggs.
It just seems like
it always comes back to eggs.
Every 20 or 30 years, somebody decides to sit down, look at the new data, and usually what happens is, after looking at all the data, everything we've been doing to this point, it's wrong.
Well, and this is why, to RFK's point, we need to be open to reevaluating all the. It shouldn't just be
we're done.
Closed case. This is good for life. We need to be reevaluating. If this man is going to stimulate science world into looking deeper into what we're doing, what are the lasting effects, the long-term effects, I think it's great. It's not going to kill us. And we're talking about a few years here. He's not in place for life. But if we can maybe shake up the way we're thinking about things, it's great. Even with the aspirin. So with aspirin, you're paying for a drug that ultimately is not super beneficial for you unless you're in one of those, health conditions that requires it. but they have found that it's just as effective to just change your diet, exercise, manage your stress. These are all free things, Mike.
Yeah,
for the
and
most
easy
part.
to do.
This doesn't require you to go to the store and purchase some new medication for
You
it.
don't need a prescription for it either.
You don't
Nope.
need a prescription for it, so you don't even need the doctor visit.
Yeah.
So, that's, to me, is crazy because once again, it's just another situation where diet and exercise are the answer. And
Back
yet
to
we're
basics.
throwing chemicals down,
Well, and it's fascinating because, you hear about all these things and you're like, well, how do I even know what's right, what's true, what I can do, what's helpful, what's not helpful? But the reality is a lot of the things we're talking about have really come into our market in our realm probably over the last 50 to 75 years.
Yeah.
What has been the stuff that's been working for hundreds and
For
hundreds
hundreds
of
of
years?
years. Simple stuff.
I would say chiropractors probably won't.
Chiropractic has been around longer than
Yes.
medicine, actually.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about just the spine and the body in general, there's pictures of even thousands of years ago, people already working with the spine and manipulating and things like that nature. But we go back to basics. You want to be truly healthy, simple things: drink water, sunlight, take a walk, eat whole foods. I mean, go back to basics.
So you think the issue is we recently have been trying to do quick fixes? Is that what this is?
Quick fixes or fancy fixes.
Yeah. Right now, the healthcare business is about selling you new products. They want to sell you the
Business.
surgeries. They want to sell you the medicine. If your visit was based on outcomes, it'd be different. If I went to the doctor and I said, yes, I will pay this amount and I want to have a non-invasive method for taking care of this in a natural way and have a good outcome, then they can do that because they sell you the outcome. But right now it's just selling you the drugs that do the service, and that's a problem.
Yeah, and you cannot. It's hard to fix chronic illness or a lifestyle issue by patching it up all the time. It's extremely hard. Unless you change your lifestyle, you'll never be able to get to the root of the problem at the end of the day.
It's a
as well.
constant fight because you're still doing the negative things that got you in the position to begin with.
It goes back to Ozempic, right?
And look at their commercials. I mean, there's people skipping down the street. It's a sunny day. They're singing songs,
Is there
I
rainbows and
believe.
unicorns?
Usually. And it's like, I want to be that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, half America's not even getting off their couch, so just walking down the street is like, but
It's
you want to be
revolutionary.
that person who's like happily doing these things. And the answer is to go and get that drug. And that's not the answer. The answer is to get off of the couch and walk outside.
Yep, exactly. That's why a lot of the Congress people talk about the way we're going to fix our healthcare issue is by providing access to healthcare. I think it's important. Access to healthcare is extremely important because you'll be able to attack a condition a lot quicker, right? That's early detection, but it's not prevention. Okay. I don't think access to healthcare or even universal healthcare would fix the chronic disease epidemic right now. I think that's just a tactic for getting people a little bit healthy, but it's not a good strategy because it's not based on principles and paradigms. So you got to change how people think. That's the only way you can change healthcare right now.
Hennessis, for us non-doctor folk out there, what do you have to say about this conversation of what do we do for our health when everything is we don't know what's right? Like for our non-doctor folks, me included, what would you say?
No, the only thing that I was thinking while you guys were talking and putting things together, I'm concerned about, I'm concerned about the media, the news outlets. Like, we're giving the platform, it seems that we're only picking one side and we're giving these people a platform. And then the minute that, someone has something to say that contradicts what the message that they're trying to portray, they're crazy or they're, they don't know what they're talking about. And that's concerning because I'll give you an example. My family in Puerto Rico, whatever it's on TV that the news are saying, we have this lady that's called La Comay. I don't know if you heard of it.
Comay is
Dr. Vincent. How would you...
It's a doll.
It's a doll.
That sits
Like
in a
literally.
throne that talks gossip.
Gossip about not only
They do it
what's
different
happening
there.
with pop culture, but with government. And a lot of things come to light because this lady at 6 p.m. start talking about what's going on. And people really believe what they listen to, right? And when you have so much power, when you have that in your hands, we need to be more responsible as a society.
It's like, oh my. It's a doll.
Yeah. And it has like a co-host that asks the lady question,
Super
tell me,
clever.
Komai, so what's going on with the governor of, and then
It's
Wow.
called
it starts
propaganda, right?
propaganda, and then La Komai has a lot to say, and people, La Komai said it, you know?
That's so fascinating that it's almost like you lower people's defenses by putting a doll, and so they're like,
Yeah, they're more.
weird.
And,
Yeah, more accepting.
and the next day, Laura, the conversations are, did you hear about what the Komai said? You know, and it's concerning because not just with La Komai, but with news outlet. This is what the anchor said yesterday, and people believe what they see.
Yeah, people are stuck.
We need to be more responsible, and I mean, I get it, freedom of speech. I want to hear what the other people that think differently have what they have to say, but I also want to hear other perspective and people questioning those people.
I don't think people are open to. There's a lot of people that are not open to listening other perspectives. They're so stuck in the matrix right now, in the propaganda in general, that they take that as the truth and the absolute truth.
Don't you think RFK? Do you think that's part of what he and most likely Trump as well are trying to do with some of this stuff? Like, are they trying to separate out some of that? How everything's connected right now? Like
Literally, I mean, that's how he won the election. He's like, we're gonna go away from the traditional news outlets, and we're gonna go to podcasts where we can have a conversation.
like this.
Yeah, like have a normal conversation. This is my perspective. You're gonna get asked tough questions. Nothing is scripted. For example, when Trump went to Rogan, that wasn't a scripted conversation. Like, I have this question and answer it as best as she can. But the unfortunate part is the traditional news outlets. There's a lot of money involved. There's already a script, and there's questions already pre-written, and there's a topic that we want to cover, and there's a perspective,
agenda, if you will.
right? And there's a perspective that I want to truly hear from the person being interviewed, right? You go to CNN, you're gonna get a perspective of vaccines. You go to probably another news outlet, and you're gonna get a perspective of freedom of choice. Right? So as human beings, we got to be responsible and not take everything as the absolute truth, but also get information from both news outlets so you can get to the actual truth of the situation.
So fascinating. Let's talk about gut health for a minute, because we've been talking about chronic illness. Guess what? I believe, and I've heard you all say it too, is part of the middle of chronic disease is gut health, right? And you talk a lot about it this month in your office. Tell us about what's happening with gut health and why it's such a big deal.
I mean, every disease usually has to do with either toxicity or deficiency. You're getting a lot of something that you should not get, or you're not getting what you actually need. So it's always toxicity and deficiency, and most disease starts in the gut. I mean, you are what you absorb when you eat. You're not what you eat. You are what you absorb when you eat. If you're eating crap, then your body's gonna be crap, right? If you eat healthy stuff, then you're gonna have a healthy body. And unfortunately, right now, our guts are being destroyed by the food choices and the stress we're under and the toxins and chemicals our body are absorbing every single day. So let's talk about chronic illness again, right? Top 3 killers in the U.S. Cancer, heart disease, and obesity and medical errors, whatever you want to call it. It goes back to the food that we're eating. And our gut is constantly either absorbing good nutrients or it's absorbing toxins that go into the blood, and that causes inflammation. So let's say, for example, right now, the traditional American diet, right? It's going to be a lot of sugars, refined carbohydrates. We're going to have the seed oils, which we talked multiple times. You're going to have the omega-6, which are not healthy either. You're going to have phytic acid in certain grains and seeds. All that goes into our gut, and it destroys the intestines. And then we start getting leaky gut.
Yep.
And leaky gut leads to chronic inflammation, which leads to a lot of chronic illness. Right? That's the main thing.
No, and it's I don't think a lot of people realize how fascinating the gut is. Your gut is kind of like a second brain, in that it houses an enormous number of nerve cells, and it's deeply connected to the central nervous system.
I have a gut feeling.
Right? Which came from
that's it.
That gut-brain axis is a very real thing. They communicate through parasympathetic, the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
And so the way that we're treating our gut right now is not good. And when we come to leaky gut, one of the biggest causes right now is going to be gluten. Because gluten right now, it's in a lot of that
Americanized gluten.
Americanized gluten is way worse than European gluten for sure. And this Americanized gluten that we have basically breaks down in the body into gliadins that activate a zonulin, and these zonulins come in and they just kind of loosen the gap junctions of the gut.
So thought you just said lasagna land. I'm sorry.
You know what are
like
gap junctions?
No.
So if you look at your intestines, you have these cells called enterocytes or enterocytes. In between them, there's little gap junctions. That's what he's talking about. They're kind of like, how do you call it?
Kind of like a zipper.
It's like a zipper, yeah, to prevent.
They'll open and close as needed, but the idea is that they want to prevent food particles and toxic chemicals and microbes from getting through into the space that they don't belong in.
Yeah.
So when that opens or it's loosened, now food particles, for instance, can get in there, which allows them to enter into the bloodstreams. The body recognizes that food particle as a foreign invader. And so now this is where gut starts to lead to autoimmune conditions,
Right.
because now it's recognizing these and food sensitivities, because now the leaky gut allows the food particle to get out. The body recognizes that particular food particle as a foreign invader, and now every time you eat that, it's attacking it, which means inflammation's going up, and you start to have these food sensitivities because you're getting sick.
So basically, you're saying most of us are walking around with a broken zipper.
I will say,
much.
Walking
to
with our
some
coat
degree.
open.
Now, when you have a healthy immune system, your immune system's able to fight and correct the problem.
But over time,
when you have these chronic issues where they're not going away and they're just compiling over time,
it
your
can
immune
only
system
fight so
takes
long.
a dive, and that's where you see 20-somethings, 30-somethings who are like, hey, I never had a problem with this, but I can't eat this.
You're getting 5-year-olds with like 10-year-olds like with chronic illnesses.
It's all the food they be eating, and with babies, we're talking about not only when they're born, but pre.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I've heard it said, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You two are the doctors. You are born with half of your gut from your mom, half of your gut from your dad. Like you inherit that
Predisposition. Yep.
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
So
Yeah, it's
Pottinger's cats, I believe.
It's I think I don't think a lot of people know about leaky gut, and unfortunately are walking around with chronic inflammation, autoimmune issues, and this concept of my body is trying to attack itself. I think it's just so weird that your body, right, the body that God created, that it's intelligent, that knows what to do, tries to attack itself. But the reality is that it's attacking itself because you're killing it, and it's trying to protect itself from you killing it. It's a whole different conversation. I wish more people knew about what is leaky gut, what foods cause leaky gut, and what chronic issues your body's going through that are tied to leaky gut.
That's what's crazy, though, because when you have that immune system overactivation, this is what's leading to IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, but also rheumatoid arthritis, eczema, the food allergies I discussed, other chronic health problems are all stemming from this leaky gut.
You mentioned gluten. What other foods are people needing to be aware of?
I mean, sugars, refined sugars or refined carbohydrates, or foods that are high glycemic that spike your blood very bad. Usually, that are going to break down
or does fruit not count?
I mean, if it's if you're, so there's certain fruits that are high glycemic.
There are.
I think when
not as bad as
it's more the
eating sugars, candy,
refined.
It's more the refined and processed.
It's
foods.
more the refined.
It always comes back to that processed
Gotcha.
foods. Preservatives they're putting in there, the dyes. These are all things that really shouldn't be in your body.
Yeah.
What is it that what you like to say? They're food-like substances.
Food-like substances, right? But then you take, for example, seeds. You need help?
She
wanna
was.
No. I
this.
I'm talking to Dr. Vincent because
They're having a conversation.
Oh, they're having a conversation.
Without
so
you.
you take, for example, a seed. A seed, for example, also has phytates or phytic acid. Phytates also affect the gut lining.
Yes.
It can affect these gap junctions because phytic acid is important for a seed because as a seed falls into the ground, it needs to fight off fungus and different bacteria to make sure it's able to grow. So phytic acid or phytates in a seed are good, but when you ingest that can break down the gut lining as well.
So very fascinating. It's not even, in my opinion, it's not even just what you eat, but it's all the toxins that
It's a
world
combination.
is putting into us. So you have like cleaners that are toxic. You have smells of like just things that are not actually natural, right?
Yep.
Hannah says, have you seen that and found that? I mean, like as a woman, like how many chemicals could you put on your body every day?
Yeah, a lot. It's funny because I have perfumes and
Don't say that.
well, I have perfumes. Am I using them? No. Every time, I mean, I like them, and like occasionally I'll be like, psst. And
Like on the
that's
clothes.
still wrong. That's still wrong. I know, because hey, your skin is your biggest organ, and
It absorbs
and
a lot.
absorbs everything from deodorant, air fresheners that we're like, yeah, it smells good, but your body is being exposed to all of those chemicals constantly, and you cannot be in control of everything. We all know
Exactly.
that. It's hard, but can you minimize? When you're conscious, can you minimize
There you
and
go.
put in the effort? I think
You have
that's something-
choices,
Yeah,
right? You
you
have
can do.
choices.
But you go places all the time in public and you
Right.
can't control what other people are doing. So then what do? What are some things we can do to help ourselves be healthy? If we're like cleaning up our food, we're trying to minimize things, what else can we do? We got gut issues, we got things going on, we got chronic illnesses, inflammation. Chiropractic, does that help? How does it help?
So you remember your body's always going throughout the day excreting, right? Excreting through either the skin or through hair or through our pores. It's always trying to get rid of these toxins, right? A detox is also very important, right? You got to detox at some point, do some sort of fasting, because your body needs to break.
Saunas?
Saunas are good. Yeah. Saunas are actually very, very effective at that as well.
Cool.
But you got to do some sort of fasting or like I said, detox in general. Chiropractic is always going to allow the body to heal the fastest, right? We got to use chiropractic as a mechanism where it takes our body from fight or flight, chronic inflammation or acute inflammation into rest and digest where healing starts to happen. And for example, your brain is in charge of replication of cells in your body. So let's say your gut is damaged right now. Your brain is ultimately in charge of fixing that area. So the benefit of chiropractic is that it helps remove interferences from the spinal cord so that your brain can communicate better with your organ systems and that your organ systems can communicate better with the brain. So are you going to be better off getting adjusted regularly? Absolutely. Is the adjustment going to fix all these gap junctions that are damaging your gut lining, leading to the chronic inflammation? Probably not, right? But the salutogenic effect of the adjustment, it's way better. And salutogenic is just the genesis of health, right? Which is, it's a different paradigm.
catalyst.
Going back to RFK and our chronic healthcare issue, I think this is a battle of ideas and concepts and paradigms. We live in a culture right now where we think that our body's dumb, that it's designed to be sick, and that it doesn't have the ability to heal itself, right? But when if today, instead of watching a pharmaceutical drug ad, we actually saw an ad about changing a paradigm and saying your body's designed to be healthy. It has everything it needs to be healthy. If you cut yourself, it's going to heal without you thinking about it. You start to change the perspective, and then people start to say, all right, instead of me taking a drug to patch the symptom, what can I do to help my body heal over time so it can fix all the problems that I have, right? So chiropractic works on a salutogenic paradigm where every time you get adjusted, the brain is able to heal and recover and help other areas of the body function better.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's then talk about this whole movement of, I guess they call it MAHA.
Yeah.
Make America Healthy Again, right? Do you think Make America Healthy Again is actually, that's the point, is the new paradigm?
I think so. I think that's the new paradigm. I think there's more to it. Right now, it's very basic. Like, let's tackle the chronic disease epidemic, freedom of choice. Let's eliminate corruption. But there's more to it. There's a like I said, there's a paradigm that needs to shift right now. The people that make better health decisions is because they've learned over time and they're more educated usually. And they understand that the body has the ability to heal itself. So instead of adding stuff to the body, we just got to remove interferences so the body can heal itself.
When did we change that paradigm, by the way? Because I never thought about it as a paradigm until just now when you said that. And I was like, you're right. Like, we're thinking about things completely wrong. What happened?
I think it has to do with the 60s. I think I'm going to assume it's from the 60s because that's when everything went downhill. We changed the food that
60s.
Yeah, we changed the food that we were getting. We changed in the 80s. The vaccine manufacturers got immunity as well. But for example, my grandmother, they grew up home. My grandmother was born at home, no vaccines, perfectly healthy. A lot of older people in Puerto Rico, usually if they're sick, most of the time they're gonna try and fix their problems with a home remedy. But they understood that the body could heal itself. You gave it the right stuff. Somewhere along time, that shifted. I'm going to say the 60s. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think it just comes with technology and protecting your vested interest in those corporations as they come out. Microwaves.
Yep.
You went from cooking in very normal ways over the fire, to speed cooking.
Your lights changed from fire being your candle light to
We have the electric,
all the blue
we're
light.
all carrying around radiation
In our
cell phones
pocket.
and tablets. We just
Literally.
put it right on our face all day, every day. It's great.
Yep.
So
And earbuds just right in your ear, frying your
a
brain
lot
out.
of it comes from the technology and people keeping up with
It,
that.
yeah, there's definitely been a shift in that paradigm. I don't hear a lot of people talking about your body's ability to heal itself. I don't hear that a lot. If anything, I hear more people saying that the doctor was the hero of the story.
Interesting.
Where the doctor just went in and did something, and then the hero of the story was your body.
Yeah.
It's like you take antibiotics. Antibiotics, they don't heal you. They just literally stop the reproduction of the bacteria so that your body can heal itself. Right? So we just have the wrong concept of what is health. That's another problem. We have the wrong definition of health. We think that health is we feel good, we look good, then we're healthy. That is so far from the truth. Health it's an internal thing. It's how is our body functioning emotionally, physically, and spiritually, and not the mere absence of symptoms. That's actually the definition from the WHO. The only good thing they have, right? So it's a conversation about function. And we've lost that. We don't talk about function. We only talk about how we feel, how we look. And if you're feeling good and you're looking good, then you're healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought before I got, started in studies and stuff, I always thought if it was available to me, that there was some governing body out there who regulated it, made sure it was safe for consumption, safe for me to have, and that, some things might have sugars and things, but never would have thought that preservatives and dyes and other chemicals and processing of these foods would be happening, and that the things that I'm getting could be bad for me. And I think a lot of us kind of felt like, and maybe we were in a place where that was the case. And at some point, somebody recognized that and decided to manipulate that comfort that we had in the safety of the government and the foods that they're approving for us. And unfortunately, they kind of turned around and stabbed us in the back with it. Yep. And now we're here eating things. We have raised generations on some of these things. And it's going to be hard to turn all that around.
It's a paradigm shift.
You always thought it was safe. And now you've got to turn around and tell people, oh, I know you've been eating that for 10 years. It's bad for you, but I'm still here today. Why is it bad for me? Sure.
And a lot of people, now that you mentioned that, because a lot of people, they associate, let's say a red dye, for example, or a pesticide to, if today I felt good and I look good and I've been eating that all my life, I'd be saying, it hasn't killed me, so I'm good. What are you talking about? However, they have all these systemic issues that they might not correlate with the toxicity from that specific chemical. And then you bring the conversation of bioaccumulation. Yeah, not only let's say, for example, another type of person that on top of them getting that toxicity from what they're eating, they're also exposed to different things. Let's say radiation or lead in the walls or another pesticide or another stressor, toxic stressor, then that keeps adding up.
You know what's fascinating? You keep talking about, people feel good. And Hannah says, I'd love your opinion on this, is like, I think I thought I felt good until I actually started eating right, and then I actually felt good. But you didn't actually realize how bad you felt until you felt good. Did you experience any of that?
That's funny. I was thinking right now, the perfect example, not necessarily about me, but it's one of our patients. So the other day, this was last week, I love her to death. But we started the conversation, or I asked, she was like, hey, how are you feeling? Because for the past 2 weeks, she was having the worst sinus infection. Like, she was so congested. We're like, I was like, what's going on? She's like, girl, I don't know. I'm like, well, why don't you try, I don't know if you're eating it, but avoid taking dairy. I was just like putting it out there. She's lovely. She's like, no, that's because I'm not even hungry, but the only thing that I can eat that I feel comfortable is cheese. Like, I was like, why don't you just like skip it and see how it goes? She's like, it's just it's the only thing that I love and that I can eat right now.
She only eats cheese?
No. That's not the only thing. But I was like, the point was like, hey, try to avoid. Like, she's so congested. Yeah. But for the past 2 weeks, every time she walks in, and she's like, I don't know, I can't get rid of it, and I'm just hitting a wall. And I just suggested, hey, avoid dairy, because the mucus and all this stuff that you guys are always talking about. And she's like, then I'll try. I mean, I haven't seen her yet this week. I'll see her soon and see how
she's onto the right path, because an elimination diet is how I would go about trying to pin down someone's gut issue.
But then going
place.
back to either my body's lacking something, or I'm getting a lot of something that is my body is reacting to it. But then I feel like the biggest percentage, we're in control of like how our body reacts to things. Mm-hmm. I mean, right now the conversation that is happening, I don't know at Abundance, but in Movement, it's the pollen girl, and they're showing me pictures of their cars and stuff. So now the pollen conversation, it's like going around. And then when flu season starts, and then not everyone is allergic to the pollen. I'm sure, like, if your immune system is terrible,
if your gut's bad,
and your gut is bad, why?
Chronic inflammation, right? Mm-hmm. But it goes back. This is another paradigm shift that, as human beings, especially nowadays, the conversation, everything is outside in. Mm-hmm. What is causing my disease, rather than the other paradigm, which is the one we live by, which is inside out. Mm-hmm. Right? Instead of focusing so much on the soil, right? Let's focus on what's going on inside, right? That's a whole different conversation. And here comes the other issue in healthcare, is that we don't take responsibility over our health. Mm-hmm. We always put it out to something. It has to be the pollen. It has to be the air. In Puerto Rico, the one thing that gets everybody sick, el sereno.
That or the Sahara Desert dust, whatever.
El sereno, it's like that.
There's this concept that if you wash your hair,
it's just the stupidest thing
you
ever.
You cannot walk outside because the sereno.
Sereno, it's like the air at night.
Okay.
That's what it calls it.
You're gonna catch a cold. Don't go outside.
That's what gets you.
Your hair is wet. Don't go outside.
It's like a superstition almost.
Yeah, it's el sereno. It's like
he says, not almost.
It's the stupidest thing ever. It's sereno. It's the breeze at night. That's what gets you sick. I was like, that's not what gets you sick. It's not the pollen that gets you sick. It's not the flu that gets you sick.
It's your Glade
you get sick. Why? Because you do sick. You talked about that before. Mm-hmm. So the conversation has to shift.
Wait. Say that again. You get sick because you
don't get sick. You do sick.
You do sick.
It's kind of the idea that, for instance, in your household, one person gets sick and you kind of put them aside. The whole house doesn't necessarily go down. There's still that one spouse who's going off to work. The kids still go to school. Dad's at home sick, whatever. But if you got sick, then everybody in the household would get sick because you're all exposed to it.
That's not true.
You have different immune systems and different abilities to fight these things.
To fight off.
The other day I said that to a patient. You never get sick. I was like, girl, I do sick. And then
you don't do sick. You don't do sick.
That's what I meant.
So is the whole like you're going to catch my germs. Be careful.
That's a germ theory. It's not. The germ theory is so far from the truth because if the germ theory was true, everybody would be dead. That we get killed or sick because of germs. It's our immune system the most important thing at the end of the day. How's your body functioning inside? Is it able to attenuate, right? Or turn that bacteria or kill it? That's the conversation. So the conversation shouldn't be about, can I stay inside of a bubble so I don't get exposed to the pollen? No, it's like, what can I do to build my immune system, get my body healthier so when I go out, the pollen doesn't create this histamine effect in my body.
So many paradigm shifts.
Again, we're so far from what true health is, and that's why we're in this healthcare epidemic. Yeah, access to healthcare, reducing drug costs, freedom of choice, removing immunity from vaccine makers. These are great strategies, right? But they don't fix the root of the problem, which is a mental shift.
So good. So in this conversation, you talked about WHO, the WHO, and the World Health Organization. Now, U.S. recently got out of that, yes?
Yep.
Tell me what happened, why did we get out of it, and do you think it's a good thing or bad thing?
Yep. So I think this is the second time we've gotten out of the WHO. Is that correct? Or at least I think it's the second time, or at least Trump already threatened one time to get out of it, but I'm almost certain that we got out of it for the second time. Okay. What's insane about the WHO is that the United States pays a due to be part of the WHO.
A big due, correct?
A big due, yes. 18%. Wow. Yeah, exactly. 18% of the budget of the WHO comes from the United States. So we essentially pay the WHO a fifth. Yeah, we're pretty much the most important customer that the WHO has. And the way the compensation works is it's based upon GDP. But then you take, for example, China, which has probably 2 or 3 or 4 times as many people in their population, they pay a fraction of that.
How much do they pay compared to us? You know,
let me see. I
want to say it's like we pay like $5 billion or something like that, and they pay like $1 or something.
On Trump's term, I was watching a video by Trump. He said that he negotiated to bring it down to 39 million per year, and then when Biden came back into the government, they brought it back up to 5,000 million, which is $5 billion.
Yeah, that's what it wasn't.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. I'm trying to figure out.
I don't remember. It was a lot to a little. I remember that.
No, it's like, what the hell are we paying that much money for nothing?
What do we even get for paying that money, out of curiosity?
So technically what the WHO does is you got access to everything that's happening health-wise around the world. So let's say, for example, COVID breaks out in China. The role of the WHO is to tell the United States, hey, there's an outbreak in China. This is what we're doing to stop it from
Doesn't the media do
which
that?
is where they failed us.
Which is what failed
the COVID pandemic.
And that's why Trump said, we're getting out of this thing because you guys are in charge of that. And you guys did a terrible job at making sure that COVID didn't spread out like it did. So that's one reason. The second reason, which I read it multiple times, is that the operational costs of the WHO, just admin costs, are super high. The salaries of the people that that are part of the administration of the WHO are super high. They're based out of Geneva, extremely expensive city. So most of the money that these countries are paying for policy and making sure everybody is safe, it's pretty much going towards operational costs. It's like Susan G. Komen, right? You're donating all this money, yet only 5 cents of your dollar go to the actual research.
That's so true for so many health things, isn't it?
There's a lot of corruption in health. I mean,
totally. And the last thing that I can remember that they were like touted for was their leadership in eradication of smallpox, which was a great success for them, but that's also before my time. What are we doing right now? And like I said, they had a chance to step up with COVID, and instead they brought information to us slowly. They had vested interests in
when they did the United States wanted to figure out, did COVID actually come from a bat, right? Or did it actually come from a leak from a lab in Wuhan?
Mm-hmm. I remember that conversation.
And while the WHO it's not their job to go in there and get all the information from government, that's their role. They should be able to go to countries and get participation from the government to figure this out. So when they did the report, was it leaked from a Wuhan lab? They didn't have solid information that they needed. And I think the United States just issued like a 500-page document not too long ago that said that it most likely came from a lab leak in Wuhan, China. So the WHO essentially failed. Essentially, the WHO failed to do its job, right? And like he said, we're spending all this money, right? Millions of dollars, and we're not getting much out of it.
No, yeah, and one of the possible benefits from stepping away from the WHO could be that opportunity for more decentralized, localized approaches to healthcare. So
That's very good.
in that way, it's exciting.
Yeah. And we might.
Can you break that down a little bit for people? Like when you say like more localized, decentralized, like what does that mean? Like in real practical terms for everyday
we get to
Taking a global concern, which is kind of what the WHO is doing. They take it from a global perspective, and we all kind of react to certain things. And going in North America, these are the things that they struggle with, and these are where we need to put our importance. This is where the research needs to be even more than that. In Florida, this environment is such that breeds this, and this, and these are the things that pop up in Florida compared to Washington.
we have different
And,
issues.
you know, so having these different avenues to research and bring healthcare, focus our healthcare in ways that we need it in our region. And now you also can look at other countries.
You guys say all that to the mic.
What happened?
Who will be in charge of setting that up, do you think? Like so I think sometimes people are like, well, if the WHO doesn't do it, who who will?
It has to be. It has to be. I think it has to be HHS, right?
I mean,
Is in
to
charge of
start,
leading that, right?
It doesn't mean that we can't come up with a new body that
I think-
regulates it in a different way.
Man,
And
I think it's a great point of view what you're saying. It's like we have the WHO handling disease and chronic illness and infectious diseases on a global perspective, but our main focus is it malaria in the United States? Right? It's not.
Makes
it's
sense.
chronic illness. What's the
It's your gut
conversation? It's gut health. What we're eating. Our issues are totally different than the issues that Africa is struggling with. It's a different issue than what's happening in China. So I think what you're saying, it's like on point. I'm
this
going to
could
nominate.
potentially open the door to alternative approaches to healthcare and emphasize that holistic preventative care here where we need it.
Yep. I
Because
agree.
this is not this standard American diet or the SAD diet is not anywhere but here in America. They're not eating this way in Europe. You know, this is just us.
I bet that their food pyramid looks a lot different.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, our food pyramid dated.
Very dated.
I heard a doctor that say, if you want to look like a pyramid, follow the food pyramid.
That's funny. Wait, so you said HHS would cover
It has to be.
What is that? What would that look like?
That's a great question. That's up to RFK to do it. Hey, I supported him. I love the policy about chronic illness. So now, how are we going to do it? That's your problem. Now you're going to tell me how to do it.
These are very
Or what is he gonna tackle first, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot to tackle,
Big
unfortunately. Yeah, that's a lot to tackle. I think.
What would you tackle first?
I mean, I've said it a few times. Just let's start with. We just need a little bit of traction, right? Let's sign an executive order where let's ban pharmaceutical companies from advertising on TV. Make a list of ingredients that we need to ban from food. Simple. We're not going to do this anymore. And then let's figure out chronic disease epidemic. Like, what are we doing currently that is not working, and how do we shift it? So I think what we talked about Medicaid and Medicare, I think there should be a shift on covered versus non-covered services moving forward. Like, because I was watching a podcast from a medical doctor from Puerto Rico. He's very well known. He's been in the Senate as well in Puerto Rico, and he used to work in a research department where they look at different treatments and drugs for different diseases. And what he was saying is there's certain treatments that are more effective at curing certain diseases or treating certain diseases. But because other methods, they've invested so much money in them, it makes more sense from an ROI perspective to proceed with the one you spend a lot of money versus the one that you haven't spent a lot. So you can get your ROI back. So a lot of these treatments that are being covered by Medicare, Medicaid, or are covered by insurance, they might not necessarily be the most effective one, but it's the one that we spend the most research and money on, and we need to get an ROI back. And again, I'm not making this up. This was this doctor from Puerto Rico.
And often preventative care, such as chiropractic care, is not covered.
Might not be
well.
covered, yeah.
Not covered usually at all.
Yeah. I mean, because when you talk about chronic disease, you're not talking only about cancer, heart disease. You're talking about chronic pain as well. You think about chronic back pain is the number one cause of disability in the United States.
So basically, people who really truly want to be healthy, they have to take money out of their own pocket, not only for preventive care, but for healthy food. What do you tell people who are like, I don't have money for that?
You know what's, I don't know where, I think it was in one of the hearings, the RFK hearings, he brought up an idea about giving, on top of Medicare and Medicaid, giving people HSAs. An HSA, it's a great idea because it could be tax deductible, but then you can use it towards healthcare expenses that might not be fully covered by insurance, such as chiropractic care or a functional doc or massage, whatever you want to call it. Imagine if we could get also an HSA. I don't know how they're going to do it tax-wise, but there's money that you take from your paycheck and you put in the HSA, but there's a lot more people that can get it, not only the people that have a high premium, low premium, high deductible insurance plan. Because right now, based on the law, the only people that can get an HSA is the people that are paying a low premium, high deductible plan, which essentially means that you're paying a smaller premium a month, but your deductible is very high, meaning that before insurance covers, you got to spend $7,000. And the reason you have an HSA is so you can cover the $7,000.
Genesis, I want your perspective on this, on you're buying groceries for your family, doing things like this, spending money on, you spend money. I know you guys, you're a chiropractor and stuff, and obviously you can get chiropractic care, but I know you spend money on other natural health solutions all the time, right? What would you tell and I'm sure you talk to your patients about this, is like, what do you tell them about investing in their health and spending money on that stuff, even when it feels like you don't have the money to do that?
That's a tricky question because I mean, unless someone comes in and like really asks me like, hey, what do you do? But I personally just tell them really what I do. I don't have necessarily a primary doctor. I do, get chiropractic care. That's my doctor. Say I have to get some labs done, I can get that done. One of these doctors can read them. If there's something out of the ordinary, I'll go check it. But I mean, things that when I say I wake up one day, I'm like, I don't care, I'm just going to go for it. I literally go, and say insurance is a scam, and tell them, because to me, you were talking about the HSA, and I think for tax reasons, that's what we have. And that's money that later on you can use, right? Right now, I feel like we're families dumping hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars in money that you won't see, you cannot use. And yes, it's frustrating. So sometimes, I mean, I don't want to sound irresponsible and tell people, hey, like, don't get insurance, because I know, like, you want that secureness. Something happens.
If you get in a car accident, it can come in very handy.
Yeah.
Right. Which, by the way, speaking of car accidents, our car accident, we have really good car accident insurance for car.
And it was bad.
Huh?
It was bad.
And then it was bad. But, I mean, if you're going to spend money on something, well, you know how it works in Florida. Oh, yeah. It's better to get into a car accident, hit a tree, than actually rely on your insurance, on your health insurance. Yeah. And those are conversations that sometimes, I mean, again, I'm not going to go out of my way and talk a patient into it, but I'm like, hey, I do acupuncture, 2-3 times a year. I get massages constantly every 2 to 3 months, depending on how I'm feeling. I get chiropractic care. I eat healthy. And there's this thing
all that costs money, though.
All of that
out of your pocket.
It costs money. But here's the deal, right? Let's assume I told everybody, I think everybody should get a chiropractor and should do some sort of chiropractic. You don't have to go to my office, right? Which is more concierge, more specific. We're taking x-rays. You can go to a joint. A joint is a walk-in clinic for a very minimal fee. You can get a few adjustments in there. It might be
even if you only go once a month.
Even if you go once a month, it's not a lot of money. It's literally $2 a day. And you can get one adjustment at the joint and you're good to go. So you don't have to go to these places like ours that are specialized. You can go to a walk-in clinic, and that's good. You're doing something about. What we need is people to do something about it, not just sit in their couch like I'm broke. I cannot do anything.
But
you're prioritizing your, I cannot go into, like, everyone has different priorities. I can sit down with you and it's like, let me see the car that you drive. Let me see the house that you have. Like,
oftentimes it's not that they don't have money, it's how you choose to use the money.
right.
It's how you choose to use it.
But
Most
if you
of the time.
feel better, sometimes you actually have opportunity to make more as well.
To make more money, yeah, absolutely.
So, but you gotta initiate something.
You got to put a little bit in it, invest. You got to invest in our health. And that's another issue we have in healthcare is we don't take responsibility.
And oftentimes you see people, unless something really tragic happens to them, that's when you really see people, forget it. I'm never doing this again. Right? And somehow your life changes and you have a different perspective of what's actually important in life. But why do we have to wait till something like this really touches us to see, like, let me write down everything that is important to me and really what matters right now?
It's so good because the pain really does have to be greater sometimes. So sometimes, like you said earlier, you said, oh, people just eat whatever they want to eat. And they're like, I look good, I feel good, until they get a diagnosis.
Happens,
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe I'll change the way I eat. You probably run into this all the time with your patients, Dr. Vincent.
Oh, I do. I kind of always will ask them who feels healthy, and I'm looking at them, and they have all of the stereotypical signs of metabolic syndrome, and ultimately I'm like, you're sick. You're sick. They don't like that, by the way. They don't like that, the idea that they walked in healthy and they're walking out sick. But once again, I'm providing you with some information that allows you to make choices for your life. I will support the choice you make because it's your body. But if I didn't give you this information and if I didn't explain this to you and you kept making the wrong choice, not realizing you had other choices, then that's my fault.
Zach, my husband, always says it can be hard on the front end or the back end. You can spend money on the front end or the back end. Having cancer is going to be really expensive on the back end. Going to the chiropractor, going to acupuncture, eating good food, it's going to be more expensive on the front end, but you get to decide.
Exactly.
Is that how you guys live too?
That's how we do it, yeah.
I
It's
mean,
a little bit more expensive, but
I can ask any of those same people how many cable subscriptions do you have? They're paying monthly for Netflix. They're paying for their HBO. They may have Sling for their cable. They like news, so they have their Fox apps or whatever. And you total that up. And these are a total monthly expense that keeps you sitting on your couch.
Right.
Take that and convert it to something like using that for chiropractic that encourages you to get out in the world, to get out in the real world, the sun, see other people, real people. They don't have to be digital on your screen. They're really out there doing stuff. We need to get back there. It's crazy though. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I probably have 6 different TV services.
we gotta make choices, and for example, Spectrum, having your Wi-Fi in your apartment is gonna cost you about $50. A gym membership at Crunch Fitness here, it's $10. Can you not do Wi-Fi for your apartment and just use your cell phone hotspot?
Or not have cable.
And then just and then use that money towards either going to Crunch Fitness or whatever your gym,
Netflix.
right? Or using something. You have choices.
Yeah. And sorry to interrupt, but you're talking about the gym and stuff. Like, I feel like us too, especially me, where we spend most of our money, number one is food. Number two is it's our gym and our trainer.
Your fitness.
That's literally our
I
top 2
literally
expenses.
do personal training, but I know me. I'm one of those people. I have to wake up at 4 a.m. and be at the gym at 5 because that's the only time during the day that I can actually do it. But not just that. I know that I need an accountability partner. Otherwise, I can have the Crunch Fitness. That's me. LA Fitness, Crunch Fitness, Sport, or whatever the name is, and I won't go. But I need someone. I mean, I wish I could have that, mentality of I'm gonna create my own workout and I'm gonna go for an hour. That's not me. And I've been doing this with my trainer since July, and I look at the monthly expense and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how much I'm spending. But I see it as that's the best investment that I'm doing. I don't care. $500 total a month, whatever. I'm just putting a number, but that's the best money that I'm investing in my health.
But that's a paradigm shift.
That's another paradigm. You see,
it's all about how you think.
It's how you think, because again, our belief systems fuel our actions, and our actions fuel our results, and our results reinforce the belief systems.
Somebody's going to be listening to this and they're going to say, but you don't understand. You make more money than me. I don't have that money. What do you say to them?
Being healthy and making health decisions, this is just one part of health, what we're talking about. Going to a gym, doing chiropractic care, but it can be as simple as you drink better water, you walk outside, you move, you can make better choices.
Don't stop what you can't do, keep you from what you can't
Exactly.
I mean, I would never forget when I met you guys, you and Zach and Jake, and that you guys will go to the beach in the middle of the week just because one, it's not as crowded. Two, you have the time. Let's say Monday is your day off, but you're getting sunlight. You're out there. And I mean, it's as simple as you can start somewhere, right? Like go on a walk.
Just
That's
do
free.
Just do
go on
something.
a walk. The sun is out. 30 minutes, 20 minutes, do something. Start somewhere.
Spend the $5 that you spent on the prepackaged item
Start
on a
somewhere.
non-prepackaged item.
Yeah.
And it's also just putting forth the effort to be aware. Doesn't matter what your income level is. You're sending your kids to school, and if you're low income, you're probably on some sort of a school meal plan. But when you look at what the schools are offering for food, you're not putting better options in front of your kid anyway.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that doesn't have to be extra and out of pocket. You just have to get to your school's board and you know, start requesting or putting out there that we want better options.
Educating your kid on, hey, if you have a choice between an apple and whatever, pick the apple.
Pick the apple.
Well, and that's why I like that color system he's got that I think RFK was talking about, where they will have color labels, and it's like, I want you to eat. You can eat things that have the green and the yellow label.
You can use much of the green and yellow
but
as
you
you
don't
want.
eat any of the red label items.
Yeah,
and now kids just have to go, okay, wait.
And eat only
this is
one
a no.
orange.
Sure, absolutely.
There's a trend out there, if you guys can look it up on Instagram, I'm sure TikTok too, where I see moms with their kids at the grocery store, and the kids are grabbing, it's like a game that they're making, turning around, and can you read the ingredients? And the kid definitely can't. He's like, okay, so this is something, and then you'll ask the kid on the next box that they grab, Mommy, we're not grabbing it.
Isn't that our paradigm shift?
That is. It's a third grade
actually
reading
pretty
test.
cool.
If you can't read it, don't buy
Don't
it.
eat it.
It's as simple as that.
It's
And the kids are
education.
like, no, Mommy, we're not putting it in. And it's a game. But then you're teaching them early, hey, you need to know what you're putting in your body.
And anybody can do it.
Everybody can. It's spend a little bit of time in education. If you educate the kids nowadays, they'll make better health decisions in the future.
But our paradigm shifts are going to change and shift the paradigms for the future.
We might not be able to see it. I mean, we're starting right now with RFK. Most people that be in the healthcare industry, when they saw RFK getting nominated and confirmed, they were so excited because they're like, I thought I would never see this in my lifetime. We might not be able to see the change in the chronic disease epidemic, but kids like Jake might be able to see it, right? Or my kids will be able to see it because we actually did something about it now, and now we're going to see the benefits 30, 40 years from now. I mean, it's the same thing how we got here, right? 40, 50 years ago, some people decided to make the wrong decisions, and now we're paying for them, right? And 30, 40, 50 years from now, if we actually do something right now, we might be able to get something better out of it.
Awesome.
I think it's a crucial and pivotal moment in history when it comes to health. This is the moment where we have to change that paradigm.